But let's talk about the big news at the top, man. Giannis Antetokounmpo injured his wrist versus the Bulls before the All-Star break, and it looks like he's going to miss some games. Seems to be like a pain tolerance issue. But what have you heard in terms of the latest on Giannis?
It's pretty much what it was. He went to New York to get evaluated further on Monday. They found that he didn't need surgery, which is good news. Bad news, according to ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski, it's going to be a case of once the pain subsides, he'll be back on the court. When that will be, we don't know. So that leaves you kind of an iffy timeline for you have him in your fantasy leagues. He's underperformed a bit, I think, in terms of fantasy value. He's ranked outside of the top 109 cat value, but that's still a huge miss to have on your roster if you're looking to get in prime playoff position or simply get back into playoff position in your fantasy league.
Yeah, at this point, you just got to play this waiting game, and this really does suck. I mean, Giannis is a warrior. I mean, we saw it in the playoffs years ago when he hyperextended his knee, then came back and then wound up winning the championship afterwards. So I think this guy is a dog. He'll figure out some way to get back there. Fortunately for the Bucks, though, they're in a really good standing in the Eastern Conference. They were just peaking at the right time, and for this injury to happen, definitely not ideal. But what do you think is the fallout from this? Like, are you trying to buy low on Jrue Holiday, maybe Chris Middleton? Brooke Lopez should probably be pick up a substantial role here if Giannis is going to be out. But is there anyone else that you've kind of looked at, even from a waivers perspective, that can fill the void of Giannis? Probably not many.
No, it's pretty tough because in the past, you kind of knew that you could rely on Bobby Portis to be that guy. Even though he would be rostered in most leagues by now, he's out injured as well. So you can't really count on him. Even like a Pat Connaughton or Grayson Allen, those guys have been starting. I don't know if there's enough value there in terms of consistency to be worth taking a shot on. Maybe you grab him for the end of this week if you can, if your rosters aren't locked, and see what you get there and see how it goes from that point. But yeah, I don't really see too much value beyond the guys that you mentioned, and like we all know, they're going to be rostered already in most, if not all, leagues.
Yeah, that was my thought to it. I think Grayson Allen, maybe he gets a little bit more staying power, but he's primarily just threes, points, and steals. And then Pat Connaughton can give you some sneaky rebounds, but their depth kind of changed. We'll see. Maybe Jay Crowder gets into that lineup a little bit quicker because they're going to need some front court play to kind of weather the storm while Giannis is going through this injury. Also, Russell Westbrook is joining the Clippers in a surprise move. It was rumored that he was going to LA originally, and then they kind of mucked up some kind of conversation about him potentially going to the Bulls. But it is the Clippers that is going to be his next destination. First, what are your thoughts on the move? What does this do to Terrence Mann, more importantly?
Yeah, I think Terrence Mann hasn't been a great fantasy option either way, even though he's been starting. I don't think there's going to be a severe impact just because of that. And I don't see a situation where Russ just jumps into the starting lineup right away. Obviously, I don't even know if that's going to be the case down the line. It's a peculiar move. Maybe they're betting. I don't even think you can bet on like the revenge factor with the Lakers because the Lakers might not even be in the playoffs. So, the poor shooting. And at this point, I think he's the type of player who's going to need a full offseason to really change how he plays. To expect that on the fly is very difficult to do. So it'll obviously make for conversation, but in terms of fantasy value, I don't really think it does too much. Maybe if you're thinking about Bones Highland, which I don't think he should have been, maybe this move impacts him, but I don't really see too much going on there.
I mean, talk about a come up for Russ, man. He went from the 13th team in the Western Conference to the 4th. So I don't think he's really too upset about his situation. I do think it's going to take time to gel. And the interesting part about it is like you're playing alongside Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, two guys that can certainly facilitate the offense. So I am kind of curious as to see what role he's going to play. Only point guard eligibility right now in Yahoo leagues, which kind of sucks because I think we could see Russ kind of play a combination of both. We'd like him to get that dual eligibility at shooting guard. But at this point, I feel like I'm a little bit concerned about Terrence Mann. Anytime you get competition, it's definitely going to hamper expectations a little bit, but I think he does have a little bit of an edge, being that he was already the de facto point guard with Reggie Jackson and John Wall now out of the building. But Bones Highland, I think, is another guy that's probably going to be negatively impacted here. That just stepped in another veteran guard that can play above him. So, Yeah, I think it's kind of tough for the Clippers, at least those two guys right now at the onset. But we'll see how this kind of shakes out. And hopefully the Clippers can maintain their status here, or else this is going to be bad news for Russ and whatever his future plans are. Talk about the Hawks real quick, because Nate McMillan got fired after the All-Star break. I feel like this was going to happen at some point. Yeah. I don't know why they waited this long when Trae Young was already being very vocal about what wasn't happening. That he wanted to see happen, and he's already thrown out some potential trade options, or in the offseason asking for a trade. So I don't know why they waited this long to do it. What are your thoughts on the timing, and do you think that this does anything for the Hawks rotation going forward from a fantasy perspective?
I'd understand the timing if they had someone in the All-Star game. You kind of don't want him to have to answer those questions, but the only person they had there, off the top of my head, was AJ Griffin, and he was in the rookie.
Yeah, the Rising Stars.
The Rising Stars game on Friday. So how much is he going to be asked about it? They should have just done it then. Then there was the excuse that Monday was a federal holiday, so they didn't want to fire him. It's like, look, man.
Out of respect for the holiday, let's do this on Sunday night.
Yeah. I don't want to come off as being disrespectful of President's Day or anything like that. So I'll put that out there. But yeah, the situation doesn't make much. It didn't make much sense. We've heard John Collins be mentioned in trade rumors for how long now? Like, it's going on 2-3 years. If you're Trae Young, you certainly don't want to put this on him because we don't have that type of information. But it's like 2 coaches have been let go while it's supposedly your team. I mean, we're not going to ask any questions about that.
Hey, where's smoke, there's fire, man.
Yeah.
This guy might be he might be a tough person to coach. I don't know. I don't know, but you trade for DeJounte Murray.
Yeah.
You acquire Saddiq Bey at the deadline, which also is like a head-scratching move. Like, I mean, maybe that's your insurance for John Collins when he leaves next year, but I don't know, man. This team just has so much chemistry issues, it seems like. And I don't know that getting rid of the head coach now is really going to solve that. They're sitting at
they're like
eighth in the East right now. Eighth, ninth in the East. Yeah, they're tied with they're a half game ahead of the Washington Wizards, which by all accounts, man, they might be in a better situation than the Hawks right now. Like, it's going to be funny to see if they can go on this run. But what are you doing with Saddiq Bey, by the way? I mean, he was a rosterable 12-team guy before in Detroit, but now that he's in this logjam, he did see 20 minutes in their last game, but like, I don't know that I would trust holding on to him, just given how much wing depth they have now.
Yeah, I don't think you can trust him at this point. Like you said, they've got a logjam at those positions. I would assume that you want to see more of AJ Griffin and Jalen Johnson, especially if they slip out of the play-in conversation. But yeah, 20 minutes per game for Saddiq Bey would be one thing if he was giving you like consistent defensive production. Maybe you could get something out of that there, but I don't see it happening. And you mentioned chemistry. That front office doesn't even have chemistry. So how are the players going to have it,
Yeah, I mean, Landry Fields going to have to answer some questions, man. It's been a rough go for the first go around here. You can pull off a deal like DeJounte Murray. I think people are expecting immediate results. So I'm really curious as to what's next for this Hawks team.